You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. All right, From the Chair, today's episode. Really looking forward to this one. Longtime friend, Rob Mullens, the athletic director at the University of Oregon. Rob, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Mike. I appreciate you having me.
It's great to be with you for a few minutes, and don't get to see you often enough in person. So at least we can get caught up here a little bit on screen today. I was thinking of last night in prep for our time together. You probably know the facts, but you are now one of the longest tenured athletic directors in America. That's a good thing. It also says a lot about the industry, I guess. But if I'm correct, I think you're now in your 12th year. And I know that you had a great run, coming up through the ranks at Miami and Maryland and Kentucky before moving out to the West Coast. My question for you off the top, and this is kind of an interesting one, I think, is, given all the changes in the industry, what do you think has been one of the reasons for your success at maintaining your tenure for the length of time that you've been able to have it, and at the level of success you've had, Rob, in Eugene? I know there's a lot of factors in that, and they could go a lot of different directions, but I'm interested in your perspective.
Yeah, there are a lot of factors. And since we're fast approaching March, maybe it's a survive and advance kind of year-to-year approach. But, I was fortunate to have a great set of experiences, as you mentioned, at every stop, and some wonderful mentors, particularly at the last two stops as a senior associate AD or as a deputy AD with Debbie Yao, and then at Mitch for 8 years at Kentucky. So I feel very fortunate on the set of experiences that I had, as well as the people to lean on to help me through some of the challenges. And I was fortunate to arrive at the University of Oregon at a great time. Obviously, Chip Kelly was the football coach, had just come off of a Rose Bowl, and we had a great team coming back. And that first year, we had incredible success, went 12-0 and played in the BCS championship game. And so, obviously, when you're winning a lot of football games, that helps from the financial side, as well as allowing you to lay a foundation. And we were able to, from that football success and the track success that we were having, being able to apply, kind of to a vision of broad-based excellence, and making sure that we were putting the student-athlete experience at the center of what we do, and building the resources to allow all 20 of our sports to have a chance to compete. And so I think, when you're able to address all 450 student athletes, the 20 programs, and then rally a base with the success and the visibility of football, those contribute to being able to build something that's sustainable.
Yeah. When I think about, you mentioned working with Debbie and working with Mitch, to the extent that there is an AD Hall of Fame, and I'm not sure if there is one or not, but both of those would be first ballot Hall of Famers as it relates to being athletic directors. So that is, you're fortunate. I mean, I when I talk to a lot of folks, going up in this career, I'm like, hey, be careful who you hitch your wagon to, right? And certainly Debbie and Mitch are two iconic ADs. Are there things that I can see, knowing Mitch as I do, I can see some things that you do from knowing him, but are there things that you would say, hey, these are the direct reflection of things I learned under Debbie and under Mitch?
Oh, no question. And, I've leaned on them throughout my career, but, just being able to observe their leadership styles, and then also see how they handle difficult situations, both internally and externally. I mean, obviously, when you look at both of those programs, broad-based excellence was a vision for both of those, in two completely different settings. Obviously, the University of Maryland in a major market there, and the University of Kentucky with, one of the biggest men's basketball brands in all of the sport. Unique set of circumstances, but there's no doubt, having an office right next to Mitch's for 8 years was an incredible learning experience. And he was so generous with his time and insights. He creates, as you know, Mike, we both come from that same tree, an incredible family atmosphere. And I learned a ton from him on, the student athlete experience, connecting with each and every student athlete, and then creating that culture that allows everyone to thrive, both as student athletes and as staff.
I'm glad you brought that up because former staff member, senior staff member of mine is also a current senior staff member of yours, and that's our friend Jimmy Stanton. And when we were catching up this weekend about a number of things, and I just said, hey, I'm going to talk to Rob. We shared experiences on our relationship with you, but I said, what do you think makes Rob stand out as an athletic director? And he said he feels like you're one of the most student athlete focused athletic administrators he's ever been around. And that's a real compliment, Rob, right? And so in today's world, with the changes that we've seen in the marketplace related to portal and NIL and all those things, there's a narrative around that says that's becoming more student athlete focused. But I think what Jimmy was saying, yes, you recognize those things as being contemporaneous to what it means to be a student athlete focused athletic director, but he's saying you are more than that. And you've alluded to some of that you learned at Kentucky. But in 2022, particularly with the changes in the marketplace, what does it mean to say that this athletic director or that athletic director, or maybe this athletic director being Rob Mullens, is a student athlete focused athletic director?
Well, for us here at the University of Oregon, that's the core of why most of us got into the business. And that's the reason that we're here, right? We're part of a higher education system. We are here to serve those student athletes in this special 4 or 5, maybe even now 6 years of their career. So at the University of Oregon, for us, we put the student athlete at the center of every decision that we make. And we want to make sure that we have that connection with what their experience is like, with what their needs are. And you're right, over the last few years, we've seen an incredibly rapidly changing environment. And we want to be adaptable to that. But again, it goes back to the core. For us, this is a very, very special time for our 450 student athletes. This 4 or 5 years is very unique in helping them transition, in their life. And we want to make sure that, we provide an environment where they have this incredible support, whether it's through self-discovery, through the academic pursuits, or through the life skills support systems that we would put in place. And we also want to make sure that we provide everything that they need to achieve their dreams and goals as a student athlete, as a competitor. We do like to compete for championships. So again, it's about creating a system, a culture, and putting people around you that understand that the core of what we do is support these 450 student athletes each and every day.
It's critical. I want to talk to you about something that you've been involved in the broader industry for a second, because I think it's important, particularly coming off this Winter Olympic in Beijing that we just came out of. You have been, along with I think a couple of other athletic directors, involved in an Olympic and Paralympic think tank, for lack of a better word, Collegiate Advisory Council. Talk a little bit about the selection process for being included in that, what that work is included. Are there findings yet that you can share that you think are informative to others who might be listening to this podcast?
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I was fortunate. I'm not quite sure how it all started. I got a call from Bob Bowlesby, and the USOPC was putting together a collegiate advisory committee that was going to be chaired by Kevin White. And obviously, it was quite an honor to be able to serve with a number of other athletic directors and commissioners on that capacity, because, the United States has a very unique model in how we support our Olympic teams and how our Olympic teams are created. And so we've been able to work with Sarah Hirschland and Sarah Wilhelmi, who do an outstanding job, and making sure that one, we create an awareness of that connection, of the number of collegiate student athletes who go on to be members of Team USA, and the importance of that pipeline and support system, and all that goes on our campuses, of making sure there's an awareness of that connection, the Olympians made here, which you've probably seen the campaign, but also making sure that we're aware of what their experience is like as Olympic or Olympic hopefuls, and where there may be impediments to their ability to train to be Olympic hopefuls or Olympians. And how can we work together as a USOPC, as NGBs, as the NCAA, and as member institutions to make sure that we keep building that pipeline of Olympians?
All right, this may be unfair to ask you, but maybe you can give me a round number. Do you have a sense of how many Olympians both United States and other countries are currently on college campuses?
It's a high. Well, I don't know the number from the Beijing games, but I do know that in the most recent summer games, it was a high percentage. I don't want to quote it incorrectly off the top of my head, but at least at Team USA, it was a large percentage that either were current or former student athletes. And again, in the United States, we have a unique system, and the collegiate programs play an important role in that system. And the think tank was kind of a spinoff of that collegiate advisory committee as we see this changing landscape of what can we do to make sure, particularly those in those sports that are low sponsored or and may have been in jeopardy of being cut or facing reductions, of what can we do as an industry to do our best to protect those low sponsored sports.
Any specific findings on that front that you could share?
I think what we were looking at is, do we need to move away from a one size fits all and looking at some areas where we can do pilot programs with, whether it be men's gymnastics, or some other sports, of could we create some unique collaborations with NGBs, with youth sport, with NCAA that may need to change some rules, or, what are there some unique things that we can do with clubs? Think outside of the box, be creative. Again, not from a one size fits all, but maybe as a one off, as a pilot program, to do our best to save some of these sports and support them, because again, they are the training ground for the Olympic hopefuls.
That's great work, man. I'm glad to hear you're involved in it along with others. And staying on the Olympic theme for just a second, but pivoting to on campus, if you know anything at all about the University of Oregon, you know about the history in track and field at the University of Oregon. And one of the most incredible things I've seen in this last couple of years has been the just total transformation of Hayward Field, and that already iconic place becoming even more so, and being a place that can be such for a long, long time, both on the domestic and in the international stage. And I think you're hosting a couple of big events this coming year. But talk a little bit about the evolution of Hayward Field, the decision to invest at the level you guys did, what the result was, and I'm going to encourage those who have not seen what you've done to at least get online and see the incredible transformation that's happened there. And kudos to you and your team and those others who have been involved in it. But let's talk a little bit about Hayward Field for a second.
Yeah, it's obviously a very, very special place, just loaded with history, both for the University of Oregon and the success under, Coach Hayward, and then obviously the legendary Bill Bowerman, Coach Dellinger, and on. And so many historic events have been hosted here. And in our community, Mike, for those that haven't been here, track is kind of a really rallying spot. It sits right in the middle of campus. It's a unique setting, and we have an incredibly passionate and knowledgeable track fan base. And so, when you think about preserving, track at the University of Oregon first and foremost, but then also, its place for the sport in our country and internationally, as you mentioned, Eugene has been labeled Tracktown USA. What's going to serve for the next 50 years? And a reimagined Hayward Field was the result, and built the best track facility in the entire world. And we were fortunate to host the Olympic trials most recently. This year we have the NCAA championships, as well as the IAAF World Championships, which have never been held in the United States. So the first time in the United States. And as you said, I would encourage fans to come experience it, The NCAA track championships is one of the best championships you could ever attend. Over those 4 days, the competition, the passion, and it'd be a great place to come see it at Hayward Field.
Tremendous. It's a beautiful facility. I mean, look, I know when you're building a facility like that, you're not necessarily looking for beauty. You're looking for functionality first, but there's the added beauty of the location of the facility, set among trees, and just how you guys did it aesthetically is phenomenal. I'll look forward to maybe seeing if I can get out there for one of those two.
Yeah,
events.
come on out. There's a new video board that's being finished right now. So again, you're right. It was about student athlete support and fan experience, and we're proud of what we've been able to produce on both fronts.
So I know this football season you had a sort of an unexpected change, but the result was what seemingly is another great hire by Rob Mullens, right? So we all hope so, right? That since that's what
Yeah,
athletic directors tend to be
yeah,
tend to
yeah.
be
That
judged
does
by.
contribute to the longevity you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that whole tenure conversation has a role in this. Okay, so Dan Lanning, and Dan's 35 years old. Obviously, for those who aren't as familiar with his name, even though you should be, was the defensive coordinator for the national champion University of Georgia Bulldogs. Great track record. Started in high school, worked his way up through a number of jobs before arriving at Georgia a few years ago. Tell me what you saw in Dan and why he's in Eugene now.
Well, Dan was on our radar from the beginning. Obviously, Dan's had incredible success. He's had a unique set of experiences that kind of fit where we were. We changed our structure a few years ago under our previous head coach, and Dan had a set of experiences as well as familiarity with the structure that we'd had some recent success with. And so, Dan was the leader, the energy, and had the systematic approach that fit where we were in our journey.
So, Rob, I'm interested in some folks say, hey, you tend to vacillate from one kind of hire to a different kind of hire, the next hire, and then you pivot back to another hire. And look, I'll use a personal example. When I hired Lane Kiffin originally at Tennessee, he was a different hire. He was in many ways so different from Coach Fulmer. And then when Lane left to go USC, I hired Derek, and Derek was a very different kind of hire than Lane. I mean, Lane was had been at SC. He'd worked with Pete, the Flash of Los Angeles, et cetera, et cetera. And then Derek was, son of the South, right? His dad won a national championship. He worked with Nick. He knew what grits and sweet tea were, all those kinds of things. And so, there was seemingly some differences between those folks. Do you feel that? I mean, I think the answer is we're trying to make the best hire. So is that notion that is out there that ADs tend to vacillate every now and then, is that an unfair assumption? And just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's an unfair assumption. Obviously each circumstance is unique, right? In this circumstance this year, nothing was broken here. We were having success. We'd been Pac-12 champions and we'd won the North and won 10 games even this year. So, for us, it was about just stepping back, taking an evaluation of where we are and what was working and what fits our values and our priorities. So for us, we wanted a CEO of football. I think that's probably where most people start. But the biggest thing for us was we want somebody who builds authentic student-athlete relationships and who understands how to recruit in the Pac-12 at the University of Oregon. And again, our previous head coach had built a structure that was, really off of the Alabama, Georgia model. And we had seen some unprecedented success in recruiting. So we felt it was important to find a person, again, who understood student-athlete experience, student-athlete relationships first and foremost, but also understood that structure, that formula that we were having success with. And in addition, obviously, they need to know how to prepare and coach, student-athletes to help you compete at the highest level. So, I can see that if you were forced to make a change because of lack of results, where you might pivot to something that's away from what wasn't working. That was not the case in our situation. We were winning football games. We were having success on the recruiting trail. And, it was a good chance for us to step back, assess, and figure out what the next 5 or 10 years looked like.
So you have had the benefit of time. We've talked about that now on a couple of different occasions. You have, and I want to ask you specifically about George and the new Pac-12 commissioner. You have some history in the league. I've heard great reviews, great returns from the interaction with him, and in your chair and your history in the league. Maybe speak specifically to what you're seeing and what you're encouraged by in your interactions with him. I'll still call it early in his tenure.
Yeah, no, George is doing a great job. It's great to have George on board. Obviously, he brings a unique set of experiences when you look at his background, both in sports and entertainment. And he's worked at some, very successful organizations and been a leader in many of them. And his energy, his knowledge, his approach, he's very collaborative. He understands this is a new industry for him, and so he brings a fresh perspective. But he also brings an ability to listen and understand, the practitioner's perspective as well as every other affiliate group's perspective, whether it's presidents, FARs, SWAs, and he's done a great job. Right off the bat, he hit the ground running and came to each of our campuses and spent a couple of days on a listening tour. And it wasn't just a listening tour for what ADs or, football, men's and women's basketball coaches had to say. He wanted to make sure that he met with staff at every level, that he met with student athletes, that that we, put him in front of donors to ask, to answer the tough questions. And I was really impressed with the approach that he took of really getting out there and listening to everyone that's closely connected with our institution to get a sense of where we were and what our priorities should be.
So another key influencer at the University of Oregon. I can't be online with the University of Oregon athletic director and not at least ask about the impact that Phil Knight has had on the University of Oregon. And I know that's significant, but this is your chance to talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's obviously incredible. It's I said in an interview once that if you had a first round draft choice in college athletics, Penny and Phil Knight would be hands down your first draft choice. And it's not just athletics, Mike. I think that's the part that gets lost when you come to the University of Oregon. You can see the impact that Penny and Phil have had on the University of Oregon. Knight Law School, Knight Library, Knight, now the Knight campus for accelerated scientific learning, and the $500 million gift to that campus and what it means. And then obviously, it's been a game changer for University of Oregon athletics. When you look at our facility infrastructure and the branding and the connection that have all been the vision of Mr. and Mrs. Knight, we wouldn't be where we are without them. There's no doubt. For me personally, what an incredible resource to be able to pick up the phone and shoot a text or to get some insights for somebody, one who's a genius and who's created an iconic global brand, and also has this incredible connection and passion for the University of Oregon. So I feel very fortunate.
Very fortunate, to be sure. So, all right, take a step back for just a second, and you've got all the things that are in the mix, in the soup today, right? Portal, societal issues, political issues, whatever. NIL, realignment, COVID. Shall I go on? Given the benefit of time, it's easy for somebody to look at all that and say, oh my gosh, this is crazy what's happening to college athletics. Now, I do believe that time will tell that there have been problems forever, or I shouldn't say problems, that's a bad way to say that. There have been things that have come along throughout the history of college athletics, and you find a way, right? Certainly there seems to be a number of things at one time here in the current day's history. How do you evaluate that in a way that says, how are we steady through this, strategic through this, and prepare for the future, but also recognize the spikes and issues that are currently in play in college athletics? But you're a very even-keeled guy, a very thoughtful guy. Seriously, I mean, that's my experience with you, right? And so I'm kind of asking you to give me your take on that, knowing that's how that you approach those things in a very thoughtful manner.
Well, I appreciate that. And there are plenty of, oh my gosh, days. There just are, because, they are significant issues that don't necessarily, it's hard to see the finish line on them, right? So unfortunately, we have a great team of professionals here, and this is a great industry. When you think about the impact that an athletic scholarship can have for a young person, whether it be, a first generation college student. And, Mike, as you know, in this business, we're fortunate to know what really happens here on a day-to-day basis. We understand the support that is provided to student athletes, scholarship student athletes, and walk-on student athletes. And yes, the continuum has allowed us to provide more and more support, whether it's cost of attendance, enhanced meals, now NIL, which are all things that we support. It's just trying to make sure that we keep the focus on education, and support for the student athletes. Because again, when you look, the support that's provided in athletic departments is far more than tuition, fees, room and board. When you think about the concierge medicine that student athletes have with a team doctor or a trainer, when you think about, priority registration for classes or free tutors, and again, nutrition, strength training, equipment, a unique set of travel experiences, the locker room leadership learning is co-curricular. All that to say is this is something very special. And while, change can be difficult, change can create anxiousness, our approach is to come in here every single day, going back to the beginning of this conversation, of keeping the student athlete at the core of what we do. And yes, I think today with social media and, everybody wanting immediate results or immediate feedback, sometimes, we just have to keep calm, keep working, and keep the priorities at the forefront. Again, for us, is about that student athlete support, and understanding that there is a ton of good in college athletics. And while it may be changing, we just need to set up the systems to allow it to continue to provide that experience for student athletes.
So you're still bullish on the enterprise?
I absolutely am bullish on the
Yeah.
enterprise. I don't, and again, my hope is that it can remain broad-based, and that we can continue to provide as many opportunities as possible. I do think, that, is in question as we see some of the rapid change. But I also am in support of student athletes being able to get additional support. The shift in legislating competitive equity to legislating student athlete support was the right shift several years ago, and we're still in that continuum.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good word, man. So we're gonna end on something I know that is near dear to you. There's this whole concept of, some people call it work-life balance, some people call it work-life integration. I know that family's important to you, and I know your kids are important to you. And I've talked to you when you've been on the road at a baseball tournament in Missouri, and those kinds of things. And so you are athletic director at one of the biggest brands in this industry, but yet you are making sure that you find time for those guys. And I think, tell me, I know why it's important, but how are you making that happen given the intricacies of your job?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you work in any profession and you have high goals and, there's a lot of people counting on you, you feel the tug both ways, right? But for me, family is first. That's my priority. And, when we moved here, the boys were 3 and 5. Now they're 15 and 17. So, it flies by. And, once the oldest starts driving and you don't get that ride home from practice time anymore, you really realize how fast it can fly by. And I feel very fortunate and blessed to be at a place where I have been able to, escape the office and run to games, try not to miss any, because, it does fly by. Now we go from, it seems just like yesterday that I was talking to you from Branson, Missouri, and the Cal Ripken Little League World Series. Well, that young man now is 17. He's a junior in high school, and we're making college visits. And it sure as hell doesn't seem like it was 5 years. It flew by. And so for us, that is the highest priority.
No doubt. The thing I tell folks, Rob, is, look, you work in an industry where your kids can be around you some, right? They can come out to practice, or
Yeah.
you can take them on an away game every now and then. And let's as administrators in this industry, let's not be so serious about ourselves that we can't make sure that we have credence to having our young folks around. Look, I love the fact that my kids got introduced to college athletics. It was the introduction to university life. It was an introduction to diversity. It was their introduction to leadership. It was introduction to competitiveness. And, what a great place to raise kids, right? If you can find the way to balance all that.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And there's another Mitch Barnhart lesson. So I'll tell you a little story because there are some great benefits. Obviously, there's a lot of travel. We work a lot of nights, we work a lot of weekends, and we are away. The job just requires that. There are some incredible benefits of being able to grow up around the college campus, have access to athletics, not just the games, but all the things that come with it. And I'll remember, as I said, at Kentucky, my office was right next to Mitch's. And one time, our son wandered in. He probably was, 3 or 4, and he just wandered into Mitch's office, and Mitch happened to be in there with the president of the university. And so I was a little bit mortified, like, oh my gosh, what's he doing? And you go in there, and to Mitch, it was just like, wait, he belongs in here. It was acceptable. Not only acceptable, it was encouraged. And so you do try to bring that. And, if we don't take it too seriously and you do create a family atmosphere and opportunities where your families can be around, it makes it a special place.
Yeah. Man, like your kids growing up, this conversation's gone too fast too, Rob. So we're wrapping up now. Hey, just want to say thanks for joining me today. Great insight. Your tenure as speaks volumes about who you are as a person. You're at a great place, doing great things, and wish you obviously continued success. And know that I'm here as a friend, professional, personal, to be a part of all that along the way. And so, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me. And I do want to say thank you to you. I during one of my times at Kentucky, the thing that was, and I hope I'm trying to carry this on, is that, when Mitch would have me at league meetings, people like yourself, like Jeremy Foley, were so inviting, and great mentors, and welcomed those of us who aspired to be in the chair with open arms. And have always been great resources and friends when we hit those difficult times. So I appreciate that. It means a lot. And again, I'm hoping to carry that forward because, I still remember how important that was to me on my journey of trying to get to the chair.
We all need to be paying it forward, I guess you would call it, right? We need to pay it forward. Yep. For sure. So, well, thanks for being with me today, Rob. Thank you all for listening to From the Chair. A reminder again that you can listen to From the Chair on wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you want to see our crazy mugs, we're on YouTube too. So join us there as well. If you have any questions, feel free to please reach out. We look forward to hearing from Rob and when you listen to this, but also other ADs as we move our way through every Wednesday's broadcast. This has been From the Chair. I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. We'll see you next time.